Welcome back to Introduction to Linux. My name is Connor Meisner-Toops, and I'm your guide through this series. You are watching video 6, Linux Streams. In this video, I'm going to talk a lot about streams. In previous videos, you've heard me mention streams before. I think it's about time we actually sit down and talk about what streams are. Stream logic goes like this. You have data, and that data is loaded into the stream and then piped to its destination. In practice, that means you load up a file, and it gets loaded into what's known as standard out, and standard out goes to a command that processes the data. There's three primary stream types. There's standard out, which is typically the data you see. Whenever you run a command, the resulting data is piped to standard out and printed on the screen. Additionally, there's standard error, which catches any errors that occur while processing data. Sometimes this gets sent to standard out, but most of the time it just gets logged. Lastly, there's standard input. That's typically keyboard input, voice input, really any kind of input. It can also come from other commands. Let's take a look at this in practice. If I were to cat an example file, it would first find the file and then load the file into standard out. Cat will then receive the stream and process on it. Now let's talk about the pipe. The pipe symbol is located typically above the Enter key on your keyboard. The technical term for the pipe symbol is the vertical line bar. The pipe redirects streams. So, for example, if I were to cat the example file, normally it would print the output directly to the terminal. However, if we use the pipe symbol, we will redirect the output to the less command. This is a bit of a contrived example because you could just use the less command on example and get the same thing, but I think this illustrates the point. So again, cat loads the example file and dumps it to standard out. By default, standard out will go to the terminal, but because we have the pipe command, it will catch that and redirect that as a standard in. It will then send standard in to the less command. Let's see that in the terminal. If we cat the example file and we pipe it to less, what we get is some text. This is the same thing we would get if we do less example. Let's look at some other ways to use streams and pipes. Almost any command that takes input can use the pipe command. For example, if we were to cat the example file and pipe it to grep and look for the word sum, we would get some text. We can also add arguments like we would from a normal command. Better yet, you can even chain pipe commands. As you can see, this can make doing complicated actions really simple. Though I will warn you that it's easy to go overboard on this. Sometimes it's better to just break out commands into multiple steps. Let's look at a more practical example. Let's cd into my desktop and ls it. Looks like I still have the license in my desktop. Let's go ahead and grep the license for the word free. And let's narrow that down specifically to the individual lines. So that's a lot of information. Let's limit this down to search for not only free, but also speech. While grep does give you the ability to search for multiple words in a single command, it's often a lot easier just to pipe it to another grep. As you can see, grep makes it really easy to do complex actions. An important note is when you pipe a command, you're taking the most recent output and acting upon it. For example, in this previous example, we didn't search the license twice. We simply took the output of the first grep and searched it. If we take another look at the search with just free, we see that grep has added a bunch of line numbers to the output. If we were to pipe this to another grep and search for the number 5, we can now filter not only by the word free, but also by the line numbers. Again, because we can chain, we can narrow our search down even more. Hopefully by this point, you're beginning to understand how streams and pipes work. Let's take a look at two other commands similar to pipe. First, let's go back to my home folder and cat the example file. Now let's say I wanted to create an exact copy of the example file. I could use the cp command, but there's another way to do this. Cat the example and pipe the output directly to a file with the greater than symbol. Now if we ls, we can see we have both example and some other example. Wait a minute, I was only looking for examples. What if I were to ls and pipe that output to grep and search for example? Aha! Another fantastic use for the pipe command. Remember, when you're working with Linux, always keep in mind all the tools you have available to you. Now let's cat this some other example, an exact duplicate. The greater than symbol pipes standard out directly into the destination file. The destination file will always be a new file. If some other example had existed with other text, that file would have been completely erased. Sometimes you don't want to actually erase the file, but rather append it. If we want to append, we could simply do cat example greater than some other example. Now, let's cat some other example. And just to prove the point, let's cat example into a new file called some other example and look at some other example. As you can see, the old file has been erased, so be very careful when you're messing with these commands. Alright, that wraps up streams. Go ahead and do a couple practice. Be sure to get some hands-on practice with this. This is definitely going to be something you have to learn with muscle memory and repeated attempts. Feel free to rewatch this video or go online and search for more help. There are a lot of great articles on the web that help explain this concept. In the next video, we're going to finally go over Vim. See you then.